Feel that energy.
Somebody say Maul up here again. I'm knocking him out. I let him say it twice. T say it. Yeah. Somebody say that name again. I'm knocking him out. I ain't gonna lie.
Joe Budden tells his cast to never mention Rory and Maul again. In a sign of rising tension between the former Friends Who Pod, Rory, Maul, and Joe find themselves taking passive-aggressive digs at each other. Over the last few weeks, there's been an increase in it because of the New York Times article. And man, will this ever end? Probably not, which is why this channel will always have a good time. But what happened is Joe asked their guests from the 520 podcast about what's going on at the Volume. And people start talking about all of the podcasts that are there now. Angie Martinez, 520, Joe and Jada. And inevitably, Rory and Maul's name get mentioned. Well, Imani would make a comment saying that the 520 podcast reminds him or reminds everyone of the old days of the Joe Budden podcast with Rory and Maul. That's right. Remember when the Joe Budden podcast with Rory and Maul represented the cutting edge of podcasting that relied on friendship and chemistry over guest-based dynamics that many would follow? I think there's some folks who believe Rogan took a little bit of that. I know you Rogan fans in the comments are about to lose it, but there's a lot of people who think Rogan took some of that sauce. There's a lot of people who think Charlemagne took some of that sauce when he reworked Brilliant Idiots, and even the Flagrant 2. People feel like, the Friends Who Pod dynamic was emulated by a lot of people, and even the way the set looks, it lives on to this day with folks like Weezy and Mandy recreating that same, dynamic, that same pastiche. A lot of folks have tried to do that, and I think that's what Imani was getting at. But then Joe makes the demand, don't ever mention Rory and Maul on this podcast again. Now, it was done in jest, but, it's also contradictory because the person who brings up Rory and Maul the most is Joe Budden. He is always watching them dudes. And I think, you know what? I got to be honest. It's something that all podcasters do whenever they split with somebody. I can't lie. I'll be watching some of the people that split with me and seeing, y'all probably don't know about that, but I'll be like, yo, let's see what they doing. It's not that I care about them. It's not that I'm like, oh, I missed them. I just want to see how you put things together after having all of these opinions on how you wanted things to run. And I'm going to keep tabs with you like you're one of my close friends just because I want to see. I want to see if you're able to execute the vision that you said you had and were so very critical of the way I went about things. And that's what Joe Budden's doing. He's very invested in how Rory navigates Maul and his idiosyncrasies as a content creator. I just did a video about it, right? Maul doesn't want to talk about the messiness, but the messiness is inherently a part of the fabric of hip-hop urban podcasting. It has its roots straight to the radio days. If you didn't talk about the mess, you wasn't going to get radio ratings, and you had to either play music or just hope that you don't get fired. The moment someone starts getting more ratings than you because they're willing to go there is the moment you start to lose. So that's what Joe is watching. All right, how do Rory and Maul operate without his stewardship? Now, to be fair, Rory and Maul, I think, have been killing it without Joe. There's a lot of people. I know the narrative now is like, oh, they were going to succeed because they're. Back then, people thought that their podcast was going to end within 2 years. And they done 3 deals. They did the Sirius deal. They did the Studio 21 deal. And now they have the Volume deal. But I do wonder how long that will last just because the Volume wants numbers. The Volume wants people that are going to generate traffic, folks who are going to gamble. And one could say that there's, they're targeting a certain niche over the last few years and it's intentional. So there's a dark side to that because I'm sure their marketing team was like, hey, man, we need to, cater to an audience. The sports people love to gamble, but let's find some hip hop audiences we can target. And that's what's happening. And that's what I was trying to wake up with Rory when I did that interview. I think the volume is just the iHeart of podcasting. Meanwhile, you believe that you have a sweetheart deal. They're marketing gambling, they're marketing all of these predatory type business practices, and you've been on your show saying that you hate how gambling has led to a lot of problems in America. It's really a epidemic, like a silent epidemic. People you talk to online are talking about, yo, I just did this parlay, I just did this and that. You saw what happened to Gilbert Arenas. It's crazy out here. But anyway, I digress. That was a mini rant. But let me know what you think. Do you feel like this Joe, Rory, and Mal tension is legitimate? I think when there's a serious fallout that happens, when people feel like they didn't get paid, where people feel like they were stabbed in the back, I'm all but certain there's really no joke that can be made. If you feel somebody robbed you, like Mal does, and if you feel somebody did creative accounting to suppress your value, like Rory did, what jokes can be really said? And on top of that, Joe isn't bigging up Rory because he actually thinks he's a good podcaster. He's bigging up Rory just to bother Mal. And if you rewind back in the day, Joe said Rory was a measly old white boy trying to divide the cast and turn Mal against him. He played into all of the gatekeeping, cultural, they not like us narratives with Rory. Lastly, both of these parties have planted nasty narratives about the other, as a point I made in my previous videos. People think Rory and Mal are lazy bums because the way they carried the end of the time on the Joe Budden podcast. And people think Joe Budden is a thief because of how he handled the accounting with Rory and Mal. So no, when they make jokes about each other, I don't necessarily think it's kiki, yeah, that's funny, this is fun. It's clouded, it's real, it's something that's embedded in their dynamic, and we will have to see how it plays out moving forward. We have yet to see if Rory and Mal respond. I presume they will. I think they're going to take slightly passive-aggressive jabs until it bubbles into like some real thing. I think Joe wants to keep it lighthearted. I think he doesn't want it to get to the point where folks are saying things like he's a thief, because that really bothers him. That's one of those narratives that bother him. There's a couple narratives that bother Joe, and there's one that I would never mention, but there's other ones like the thief that really affect him. Nobody wants to be called a thief, and the implication of it is not what other people are called. Like Charlemagne's not called a thief. People always talk about, Charlemagne put people on, he helps people out. So I don't think he wants that. But once again, this happened on the episode with the 520 podcast. I must say they did a great job. They're doing their thing on the show. I might have to check their podcast out, but I'll be honest, I don't really like Player Podcast. The reason I don't like Player Podcast is because they talk all this mess about how they different than the media, sports media, but they're just as crazy when it comes to playing the political games. They don't really be critical of people, but I must say the 520 podcast, they just said that stuff about LeBron possibly being on PEDs. That's alleged. And I mean, that was keeping it real, so I can't be mad at that. With that said, y'all, follow me on Instagram to Stop TV. Follow me on Patreon to Stop TV. This is Danny from The Stop. Peace.